All right, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to be checking out this Piers Morgan panel. I doubt we'll get through the entire video, but it's mainly the panel I just kind of wanted to touch on. So without further ado, let's check her out.
Republicans are the ones that want to ban abortion. Why don't you be honest about it?
Why don't you be honest about it? Donald Trump said he's okay with abortion up to 15 weeks.
There's a process.
I don't even know. Wait, when was the president immune from criminal immunity? What?
It's to impeach
What is
him.
that process?
These people that organize these freak shows, they love to ruffle the feathers of Christians because they know that Christians really won't do anything about it.
Black people get so offended about just about anything. You see Jewish people get offended at just about anything, and women get offended by just about anything.
We're going to have drag queens, we're going to shove bearded ladies and blue men in your face and enjoy.
Professor sug on these nuts. Democracy is no longer on the ballot in the US presidential election. The grave new threat to the republic is apparently weirdness. And Democrats are extremely eager for you to know that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are weird.
He and his running mate are saying, let's just play weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are.
As weird and creepy as J.D. Vance.
Super weird idea from J.D. Vance.
You know, if the entire media is saying the exact same thing over and over, verbatim, there's something wrong. There's something being staged here. There's real good evidence of that.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's quite weird. They're just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird, and then they start being weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Being a really weird.
He's such a weirdo.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate, they're weird.
We'll see in an MS.
It's also kind of ironic that the same people who seem to be totally in favor of drag queen story hour for kids are commenting on somebody's weirdness. I just thought that was kind of funny.
NBC reportedly used the word weird to describe J.D. Vance 150 times in 2 days this weekend, which is about the frequency with which they used to say Biden is, quotes, sharp as a tack. On the one hand, this is a victory for the Trump campaign. It's a tacit admission that Project Fear has failed. The dire warnings about Trump's existential threat may have excited Biden loyalists, but the American people weren't really having it. In fact, a recent poll of crucial swing state voters found that more people trusted Trump to defend democracy than President Biden. But the dramatic change in messaging represents a much bigger problem for Republicans. It shows that Democrats have pivoted their focus from whining to winning, and smearing both Trump and his supporters as grubby weirdos is the new coordinated line of attack.
Us MAGA Republicans banned abortion, but that's just the start.
That's just the start. If Trump gets elected, we want the government involved in all aspects of your sex life.
Way more involved.
Way more involved.
When you have sexual
Unreal.
intercourse, it should be illegal to use contraception. No pills, no condoms.
Your genitals are reserved for procreation.
If you freeze 12 eggs, you should be required to have 12 babies, or else you're a serial killer. And I'm definitely not a serial killer.
Are you?
Well, the problem with Democrats on this point in particular is that they can be pretty weird
Unreal.
themselves, not least in that video montage we just watched, but also as evidenced by Harris supporters at campaign events so far this week.
Just real quick, I want to touch on this whole abortion thing. There is no Republicans out there that wants a full ban on abortion. Like, no matter what the stipulations or what the reasoning is behind it. They're not saying, there's no Republicans out there that want abortion completely banned without exception, nothing. And a matter of fact, Donald Trump is the one who sent it back to the states, which, if you really want to get technical here, sending it back to the states so that the citizens of each state can vote and decide on what they actually want is the most democratic thing that you can possibly do. So when the left and the Democrats are crying that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are trying to get rid of democracy and everything, it seems like at every turn they seem to be the ones that are stepping all over democracy. They want to be the ones that put a federal law in for abortion that is a blanket law for the entire country, taking away everybody's voice and everybody's vote and what they actually believe. Same thing just happened to happen with Kamala going into office as the presidential candidate. Nobody voted for her. So where is this pool for democracy coming from on the Democrats? It seems like that they project a lot. That pretty much anything that they say the other party is doing, it seems to be that they themselves are the ones doing it.
You don't mess with childless cat ladies.
Good evening, folks. My name is Charlotte Clymer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a writer and activist, and I am so excited to be part of this historic gathering of women across the country.
Amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn, so do check your blind spots. You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not.
I stood over my kid's bed and I wept. I wept because I felt like I let them down. I wept because they had the chance, and we had the chance, to have a female president for the first time in our lives and in the history of this nation.
If you're a fat guy in a pink shirt crying over top of a child's bed, odds are we knew you were going to vote Democrat. Just saying, yo. Just saying.
All very normal people doing and saying very normal things. To coin a phrase, there are very weird people on both sides. The more important point is that we now have a race with very clearly defined parameters. There are now two candidates who seem likely to survive until November, and they both have very different visions for the future of the country. The speed with which the media and the Democratic establishment has thrown its weight behind Kamala Harris is, of course, cynical and pretty nauseating, especially as we know that Biden only clung on for so long because he personally doubted that Kamala could win. I understand the anger in conservative quarters, how quickly the calamities and cover-up have been forgotten, but the fact is that Kamala Harris is the candidate and the polls are narrowing fast. If Republicans want to regain their advantage, they've got to flip the script again. Less whining and more winning. Well, joining me now is the co-founder of Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, from the Red-Headed Libertarian, Josie Glayback, streamer Destiny, and from the Officer Tatum podcast, Brandon Tatum. Welcome to all of you. Cenk Uygur, this whole thing about weirdness, are Democrats in a great place to lecture people about being weird?
This is another thing. The whole weird thing. Notice it's anything to not talk about policy. It's anything to not actually show what the policy of either one of these people are. They seem to do this. They'll call you weird or a fascist or a racist or a bigot or whatever. It's anything to make sure that they themselves don't have to talk policy, which right now we really need to talk policy. Policy needs to be what we vote on, not popularity. We're not picking a prom queen. We're not picking a prom king. We're picking the president of the United States. That's a big deal.
Given how weird so many Democrats are?
Yes, they are. First of all, the people that you showed in the weird montage for Democrats is someone dressed up, someone who's transgender, and someone who cries too much. Okay, it's not my cup of tea, but I'm not offended by it. And it's most importantly not policy. On the other hand, when J.D. Vance says that people who have more kids should be able to vote more, and he constantly attacks people without children, look, you can call it weird, you can call it anything you like, but it is way outside the bounds of normal policy matters, and it gets into controlling our lives from the guys who pretended that they were against big government.
Josie Glayback, is this J.D. Vance comment about the childless, cat-loving ladies of America, is that going to turn out to be a massive millstone? And will it make Donald Trump regret choosing him as his VP?
No, I don't think so. I think that these ladies are really leaning into their childless, cat-owning persona and just owning it. And I can think of more offensive things that have been said about women than owning cats and being childless. So I don't think it's going to hang around. I think it's kind of low-hanging fruit, and I think that they're going to move on pretty soon.
But it kind of plays into this narrative of Democrats, I think, are rather successfully pushing out there now, that the Republican ticket has Donald Trump, whose history with women is not great, to put it mildly, and you've now got J.D. Vance, whose comments about women are not great, to put it mildly, and they're going to package it all up as a war on women, using, I suspect, abortion as one of the central weapons to do that. And there are going to be a lot of women in America going, I'm childless, I don't have a cat, I don't like being talked about in this derogatory manner, and they may not want government to interfere with their bodies and so on. Are you not worried that this is going to be a big problem come November?
I don't think so. So abortion was never banned. What they did, they returned it to the states.
Exactly.
Which is the way that it should have been the whole time. Roe v. Wade was legislated. Roe v. Wade was legislated from the bench, which is unconstitutional. So what Dobbs did is it just handed it back to the states, and it told Congress, if you can write a law, then we'll legislate this law.
Look at how much the two TDS patients have right here, how uncomfortable they are by hearing any semblance of the truth. What she's saying is 100% correct. They sent it back to the states. That way, so the citizens of each individual state can vote and they can decide. It will be the citizens of each state who decide, majority rules, who decide whether they're going to have abortion and what the laws pertaining abortion are going to be for their individual state. You don't get any more democratic about that. Watch, I'll almost bet that they have a problem with it. Sank in dipshit destiny here.
Or if you can legislate this law, then we're going to rule on this law and tell you if this law is constitutional. So they handed it back to Congress, handed it back to the states. Congress tried to pass a law to codify abortion, and it failed. So it's still in the hands of Congress. If they want to write a law to codify abortion, then they can, but they haven't successfully done that yet. So until they do, it's back in the hands of the states.
Okay, Destiny,
because Republicans have blocked it.
What they had tried to do.
The Republicans are the ones that want to ban abortion. Why don't you be honest about it? Why don't you be honest about it? You want to ban abortion?
I was going to say, Republicans do not want to ban abortion.
Why don't you be honest about it? Republicans are not banning abortions. That's a fact. That's not a fact. Abortions.
They are in red states.
First of all, Donald Trump.
That's a 100% fact.
Donald J. Trump at his rally, which ticked me off because I want abortions to be banned. But Donald Trump said he's okay with abortion pills sent through mail. That's 2/3 of all abortions are done through abortion pills. He said it was fine. The Supreme Court ruled that was fine. Donald Trump said he's okay with abortion up to 15 weeks. Where on the platform of the Republican Party do you see Republicans banning abortions?
Exactly. See, I mean, dude's mind explodes because he doesn't know what to do or what to say whenever the truth actually hits him in the face. These people have such strong TDS. They're willing to say and do anything to make Trump out to be this mythical boogeyman. And you'll see it right here. I'll almost guarantee you this unhinged moron from the left, Cenk Uygur, is going to make some sort of crazy outlandish claim that Donald Trump wants to ban abortion and then beat women in the head with sticks. I'll almost bet he tries to do something stupid like that. Let's see.
There's literally, Georgia has an abortion ban of 6 weeks. The idea that somebody would be okay with something in the mail is not relevant.
Okay, so Georgia has an abortion ban of 6 weeks. Okay, that doesn't sound like an abortion ban. If you're allowed to have an abortion all the way up to 6 weeks, I don't think that sounds like a ban to me. That sounds like a regulation. Also, if Georgia has that law, that means Georgia's citizens voted on that law to make it so. I don't understand why these people seem to understand it when it's working in their favor, but they seem to be totally absent of any kind of information when it comes to the other side. And it happens on both ways. The right and the left are both like this. You'll see. I'm sure we'll see examples of it from both sides on this interview. But the fact of the matter is, the people of Georgia voted for it to be that way. That's what they want, the citizens of Georgia. Who the hell are we or anybody else to tell the citizens of Georgia what their laws should be when they themselves, the citizens, voted on it? Just like in Ohio, the citizens voted on it. I may not totally agree with what happened in Ohio, but that doesn't mean that I don't agree with the fact that the people should have the right to vote and the majority should rule as far as it comes to that. I'm not talking about electoral college. I'm talking about when it comes to choosing these type of laws.
Let me bring in. Hang on. Don't talk over each other, please. Hang on. Let me bring in Destiny to respond to that question.
Yeah, the president signaling that he might be okay with a thing at this point is irrelevant. Roe v. Wade was overturned. The idea that this court cares about legislating from the bench when they've granted the president criminal immunity, which is something that is completely unfounded.
No, they haven't. That's another lie. You see, this is what they do. They take what actually happened and they warp it into the worst case scenario, and then they put it firmly on the forehead of Donald Trump. This is exactly what they do. This is the game that they play. The Supreme Court didn't give Trump full criminal immunity. The Supreme Court granted that every president of the United States has partial immunity and has immunity when it comes to official acts. That is really easy to figure out what the official act for a president is. The official act, okay, here's two examples right here. Okay, on one hand, the president orders a drone strike of Libya to kill terrorists. On the other hand, the president shoots his neighbor in the face. One is an official act. One is prosecuted by criminal law. Can you figure out which one? I bet you can.
In any part historically of our legislative tradition, of our judicial tradition, or in the Constitution. The idea that the president might signal that he's okay with abortion pills sent through the mail doesn't matter if a state now has the ability to heavily restrict or outright ban abortion.
Okay, so what he's saying is he doesn't want the citizens to have the right to choose. He doesn't want the citizens to have the right to choose whether or not abortion is legal in their state. But I'll be willing to bet that he wants the citizens the right to choose, or he would want the citizens to have the right to choose. Let's say Georgia decided to make the most liberal abortion laws in the country. I will guarantee you that Destiny would be totally fine with them sending it back to the states if every state agreed with him. And this is the problem. That's not democracy, and that's not a constitutional republic. That is not called freedom. That is called fascism. That is when one party or one person or one entity decides for everybody else. That's not how it is here in America. That's not how it's supposed to be in America, at least.
And this idea that Republicans don't want to ban abortion, that's... I don't even know who you're talking to right now. That's great, but what Jen said was absolutely correct. What Jen said was correct. If you go and look at the restrictive abortion laws that exist throughout the country right now, they are far more restrictive in Republican states, and some of them you might be pregnant, you're not even going to know it. By the time you realize you're pregnant, it's already banned for you to get an abortion.
Okay, so they're far more restrictive in Republican states. I'm sorry for pausing this so much. It's just, holy shit. I mean, can people be dumber? I mean, seriously, either dumb or dishonest. That's what it is. So, okay, if abortion laws are far more restrictive in Republican states, and they're Republican states because of the elected officials in the states heavily seem to be Republican, that would mean that the citizens of that state are probably overwhelmingly Republican, being that they chose a Republican governor, probably a Republican DA. They've chosen Republican to represent them in the halls of Congress. So I would say that makes sense. If the state is overwhelmingly Republican, they're probably going to vote on behalf of Republican interests, okay? This isn't that hard to figure out. Should we be just mind blown that California has super liberal laws? No, because that's where all these liberal morons are from. They go over to California and shoot and fuck themselves to death. That's what they do. We know that. That's why we're not surprised when we hear about all the craziness and homeless people shitting on the street in California. Oh, well, people are shitting on the road? Oh, okay, well, that makes sense because it's California. Now, if it would happen, say, in I don't know, some small town in, Kentucky, it would probably be a little bit more surprising. But the fact of the matter is, that means the citizens chose. That means the citizens chose. Isn't that what we want? Holy shit, guys. Holy shit.
We live in a republic of
Vance was talking about the people without children.
Let me just play a clip. I want to play a clip because Well, we talked about Supreme Court and reverting rights to states and so on. Let's play a clip. This is from Joe Biden's.
Sorry, if you guys see the smoke, it's just from the vape. I wasn't going to hit this thing while I was doing this, but dear Lord.
Speech after 60 years of a civil rights bill. It was a bit rambling. I listened to it. It didn't make sense, a lot of it. It was a typical, I'm afraid, rather sad delivery by the president. But he made this point about the Supreme Court.
And most recently and most shockingly, the Supreme Court established in Trump versus the United States a dangerous precedent. They ruled, as you know, that the President of the United States has immunity for potential crimes he may have committed while in office. Immunity.
Holy shit. I mean, what do you expect? How do you expect anybody to be able to figure any of this shit out, especially when they're on one side or the other, when your senile, retarded president is saying this exact same shit? He is echoing the lies. And this is the problem, people. This is why our country is falling the fuck apart. This is the problem. We are not getting real information. We are getting whole truth or half truth and whole lies. The Supreme Court once again did not say that any president can commit criminal acts. They said they have immunity for official acts, and it's partial immunity for official acts. Holy shit. Oh my Lord. I'm going to try to get through this whole video. We're not even halfway through this shit. My God.
This nation was founded on the principle there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law.
So, Cenk, I mean, what he was trying to say, and you also have to try and interpret it, but Joe Biden he's not going to get this through, obviously, before the election, but what he's trying to do is get rid of this idea of presidents having immunity for crimes committed while in office. He wants term limits for Supreme Court justices that many people think would politicize it, because it would give people an incentive to behave in a certain way, which may then help, for example, them having a future presidential run or some sort of business plan, whatever it may be.
Hey, real quick before we get into that, the reason why immunity for presidents are so damn important, if they strip the immunity, trust me, Biden does not want them stripping immunity, because every little thing that he fucked up, he will be in court for. Every little thing. It will go back to every single living president from Clinton all the way up until present. They will go through with a fine-tooth comb and they will pick out everything. You think Obama would get out scot-free? If they took presidential immunity away, if they took presidential immunity away, Barack Obama is going to prison for murder for drone strikes against American citizens. It's just simple as that. Every president could be counted as a war criminal, and every single president then will be put in prison. Now, that drives away the best candidates that then we have. So if you take presidential immunity away, who do you think are going to line up to be president? Some of the most vicious, nasty criminals that we've ever seen will be the ones lining up to take the office, because they will be the only ones ruthless enough to survive and to be able to keep going. We will lose our country completely and will turn to a dictatorship. Guaranteed, we will see tyranny. This is just how this works. We've seen it throughout history. This is how this works. They need presidential immunity, even partial immunity. They just need... Listen, I don't think that if Trump goes out and runs over an elderly woman with his car, that he should be off scot-free. That is not an official act to run over your neighbor's grandmother with a damn car. All right? But drone strikes, sending the military, things like that, that is necessary. The Democrats want it gone just so they can prosecute Trump. They have no idea the bag of worms that they are going to let out if they take presidential immunity away. It will not benefit anybody. It is like the nuclear deterrent. It's like you hit that button, you know everybody's done for, because everybody's going to come after everybody, and that's how it's going to end up.
He also wants a binding code of conduct for the High Court. What do you think of these reforms? Are you in favour? Are you in favour of some of them, against others?
because it'll help his party. This is the fucking problem.
So look, I think the Supreme Court is one of the most corrupt institutions.
Of course you do.
I wrote a whole book about it called Justice is Coming, and how they actually wound up perverting both the Republican and the Democratic parties because they allowed infinite money in politics, and it was a scheme to allow corporations to basically buy our government, and that's what they've executed. So I loathe what the Supreme Court has done. They've institutionalized corruption. Having said that, there are some solutions that make sense and some that don't. So I don't believe in packing the courts. I think that was a very bad idea by Pete Buttigieg. I think term limits is interesting, and I think that maybe the right wing might agree to it if we had more liberals on the court. Now that they have more conservatives, of course, they won't be principled and will never agree to it. Ethics code should be basic. We should all agree to that.
There shouldn't be liberals and conservatives in the court, period. Your political affiliation, you should have almost no political affiliation in my eyes to be part of the Supreme Court because of shit like this. Then one party starts to pull and the other party starts to pull, and then all this corruption starts to happen. I'm not saying the Supreme Court's corrupt. I'm just saying that when you start dividing the justices of the Supreme Court by liberal and conservative, that's not what they're supposed to be. They are supposed to be totally impartial and only constitutional. They're supposed to follow the damn Constitution, the law, and they're supposed to weigh in and judge on whether laws are constitutional or not. Not, does it help my party? Okay, let's put some more liberal judges on there so that they can just do their wild interpretation of the Constitution. Let's put uber conservative judges on there so they can do their wild interpretation of the Constitution. How about we just put fucking justices in there that are non-biased and let them do the job that they are supposed to do? Why is this so damn hard? Why is this so difficult?
They're taking these fabulous vacations and getting basically millions of dollars in value from incredibly rich people who run corporations, and then they rule in favor of those corporations. It's just about as corrupt as it could possibly be.
All right, Officer Tatum, the problem looking at it from the outside is that when you have, as Donald Trump found in his last term of office, the ability to pack the court with 3 of your own in one term, it does lead to an imbalance which you would be crying foul about if it was the other way around. What is the answer to that?
No, I wouldn't be foul. I wouldn't be crying foul about it if the other way was around. I mean, if the roles were reversed, because I understand the process and I understand the way the government works. If there's a Republican in office and the seats are open, the Republican can get someone into that position, and if the Democrats can do the same thing.
See, I have to disagree with Tatum here. I've got to disagree with Tatum. I would cry foul if they did that, but I don't believe that's what Donald Trump did. Amy Coney Barrett was one of the most qualified female judges in the country. An outstanding record. When she went on to in front of Congress, in front of the Judicial Committee to be selected or whatever, however the process goes, the Democrats were the ones that made it about race and about religion and your typical identity politics. That's what they did, because that's what they do. That has nothing to do with whether she is qualified enough to be a justice of the highest court of the land. All right? Odds are, and obviously, she was. The picks that Donald Trump put out weren't like these extreme conservatives, I hate Jews and let's put minorities over here and kick everybody out of the country. No, they were normal people that had the best qualification. That's the difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration, for example. The Trump administration seemed to go for quality. They wanted the people that had the highest qualifications that could do the best for the job that they were being offered. The Biden administration, on the other hand, seemed to make sure that the skin color was what mattered, or the gender was what mattered, or whether you were gay or trans, or if you dressed up in a thong as a dude in front of kids at their library on Saturdays. That seemed to be what the Biden administration prized over top of everything, whereas the Trump administration seemed to aim at qualification. Now, I'm sorry, qualification doesn't give a shit about your skin color. Qualification doesn't give a shit about your gender. Qualification gives a shit about what you do and how you do it. To be the best of the best. At one time in America, we were prized for that. At one time in America, that is what we wanted. We wanted to be the best of the best in every single field. Somewhere down the lines, we lost that. Now it seems to be that you can only be the best as long as you have an equal start, or as long as everybody gets to, it's not even an equal start, as long as everybody can be the best. Everybody has to be at that level of the best. And that's retarded. That's also called communism.
If somehow Clarence Thomas is timed out when there's a Democrat in office, they're going to put a Democrat in his place. And if somehow someone else dies that's a Republican on the Supreme Court, they're going to put another Democrat in. That'll be 2 Democrats on the Supreme Court. It's just so happened to be timing. And that's why presidential elections are so
completely
important,
true.
and that's why they're so consequential. I think that the crazy thing is that out of one side of the mouth, the left cry that the Supreme Court is doing the right thing by blocking all of Trump's advances that the election was stolen. But now all of a sudden they're ruling in his favor. Make your mind up. If they're supporting Trump, then they would have allowed the election interference, election fraud cases to go straight through. They would have ruled on it in Trump's favor, but they didn't. They didn't even look at it. So I think the Supreme Court is balanced and is fair. They just don't like the fact that people are leaning more conservative. I don't like everything the Supreme Court does, but it's fair and balanced and co-equal branches of the government.
Should there be term limits?
Term limits, well, if we're going to do term limits for Supreme Court, let's do term limits in the House and Senate, and I'll be totally okay with that.
Okay, Destiny, what's your view of this?
Yeah, so firstly, the idea that if you're a Democratic president, you get to nominate and have a Democratic Supreme Court justice, that's an interesting concept in theory, but I seem to remember that Obama had spent almost a year with a vacancy on the Supreme Court that McConnell explicitly said he was going to deny a hearing for, which was insane. The Democrats were robbed of a Supreme Court seating there, and who's to say if Republicans would ever seat a Supreme Court justice? Maybe next time it'll be 2 years before an election, and they're saying, well, maybe we should wait for the next election cycle.
Now, if that is actually true, then I totally agree with him. That's bullshit. If that is exactly what happened, I have a hard time believing that's what happened because, once again, these people, they stretch and they extend the truth until its breaking point. And that just seems to be what they do.
You have to keep in mind that when the court was created, the reason why there are lifetime appointments is because justices, Supreme Court justices, are supposed to be insulated from the political pressures relating to running again for office and all of the other things that go into having to keep in mind like an election season.
Right.
However, all of that, as Jake rightly pointed out, is completely destroyed if you are taking bribes or getting paid or getting some kind of compensation based perhaps on the way that you might rule in the court. So an ethics guideline, I don't know how anybody could be opposed to that. And the nice thing about term limits are people focus on term limits as like term limiting a person, which is fine, whatever. The nice thing about term limits isn't necessarily the term limit, it's that you could apportion so that every single president gets either 1 or 1.5 picks, depending upon what you actually put that term limit as, which I think everybody would agree would probably be fair. If every president was guaranteed the same number of Supreme Court picks, it means that the composition of the Supreme Court would roughly align with how Americans are voting for president, rather than this idea that, hey, maybe you'll get really lucky and one president, if Trump were to win again, if Sotomayor were to, God forbid, die or step down, maybe Trump, one president, gets 4 Supreme Court picks, which is insane.
I think, Josie, the reality is, well, hang on, Josie, the reality is, isn't it, that had it been the other way around, had Joe Biden been able to pack the Supreme Court with 3 very progressive judges, I think Republicans would have gone completely nuts. And there's the problem, is that it doesn't really matter which side is doing it. If you have the ability in 1 4-year term to have that kind of significant sea change in the makeup of the Supreme Court, doesn't it lose its ability to be impartial?
This is why we need to pick the best candidate for the job. Piers is laying out a perfect example of why we need to pick the best candidate for the job and not pick based on popularity, not based on their skin color or their gender. We need to pick him based on qualification and things they have done, and we need to be honest about it. We've got to be honest about what each candidate has done, because if something like this does happen, we want to know that the person who's in charge of putting them in, they're picking the best ones. Not to mention, they seem to be totally skipping the part where it takes a judicial committee to actually sign off for these people to go into the Supreme Court. A lot of nominees get rejected. They get denied because they're not good enough. So we have checks and balances for this reason. This is also why we need to get rid of the two-party system. The two-party system is one of the worst ideas that we've ever had as a people. It divides the country. I mean, it is obviously divided. We have left, we have right, we have Democrats, we have Republicans. It's back and forth hatred, you know? We've got to get past that. We need something to where normal people can actually come and do these type of jobs in the government, where we have normal people as our congressmen, where we have normal people as our president, where we have normal people running the government, because normal people are the ones that when the government makes regulations and laws and taxes, it's normal people who have to live with that. So we know what it's like to live under these laws and regulations. Normal people understand this. This is why we need normal people back in the government.
Well, we had a liberal leading Supreme Court for 60 years, and now it's the first time where it switched and it's starting to lean conservative again for the first time in a long time. Now, if you want to add term limits to the Supreme Court, that would require a constitutional amendment of Article 3, and that would mean two-thirds of Congress and 3/4 of the states would have to agree to term limits on the Supreme Court. So that's just not something you can wave a wand and do. Also, it'd be unconstitutional to punish a president for performing his...
I bet Biden and the Democrats want to wave a wand and do it, though, because they seem to be totally all about just sidestepping the American people.
...enumerated and implied powers. And SCOTUS, when they had said that they weren't going to criminalize this, SCOTUS had asked the lower courts to determine that scope. But no one's really talking about that part. It was SCOTUS had sent it back to the lower courts. They didn't just rule on it blindly.
That is completely and totally not true. This is misrepresented by conservatives so much, okay? So there were 4 different actions that the court spoke about. Roberts ruled one of them is qualifying for absolute immunity, this first bucket of things that he's created, by the way. None of these things have existed historically. There are other things now. All of the other acts are presumed immune, meaning that the state, or the government in this case, has to bring a reason why they should be able to probe these actions in a way that will never damage the executive's ability to operate in the future, which encompasses all of the other actions that are spoken about in the Supreme Court case. The reason why they remanded some of that to the lower court was for the lower courts to now have that argument over the presumptive immunity. Criminal immunity has never existed in any size, shape, or form for any politician in this country in the history of the United States. And the idea that a U.S. president, that we came from a rebellion against a king, that our president is now criminally immune for performing his duties, why would we ever assume...
For official acts. Official acts, not criminal immunity, not full immunity. Do you see how they misrepresent what is actually the truth?
That he needs that type
That's
of
not
immunity.
true. That's not true.
It's true.
When was the president immune for criminal immunity?
Exactly.
There's a process for...
I don't even know. Wait, when was the president immune from criminal immunity? What?
There's a process for when a president commits a crime, and that process is outlined in Article 1. It's
I'm sorry,
to impeach
what
him.
is that process?
Look.
Hold on. No. Impeachment has nothing to do with criminal liability.
So when a president...
With all due respect, you have no idea what the structure of our government is. I'm so sorry, okay?
Holy shit, no. With all due respect, you're a fucking idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. This is what Destiny does. Ever since the whole Trump assassination attempt, Destiny has just been on a tear of destroying his own career. This is what he does. He'll talk fast, he'll interrupt, he'll... Notice when he talks, he may say a lot of words, but there's nothing that he's really actually saying. He's just saying a bunch of shit. All right? He has no idea what he's talking about. Once again, another rich kid living in suburbia that has this inflated sense of self and this total narcissistic, fantasy view of what the world should be, according to him.
Impeachment is a political process they use to unseat somebody, and once they're unseated, you can prevent them from holding future office. If you listen to Benjamin Franklin, for instance, talk about impeachment was created so that you didn't have to either assassinate or fabricate criminal charges to remove somebody from office. Impeachment has nothing to do with criminal liability. The maximum conviction sentence you can get for being impeached is just being removed from office and prevented from taking seat in future office.
And then once you're removed from office, then you can have charges filed on you for the crime that you committed. Take Richard Nixon, for example. I can't remember, was it Ford, Gerald Ford, whoever it was that came after Nixon, pardoned him of his crimes so that he would not go to prison for what he did. All right? That was criminal. So Nixon ended up, instead of being impeached, he resigned and gave power to the next person, to his vice president. All right? What he did was criminal. And had the impeachment gone through, he would have been removed from office and then criminal charges would have been filed. But the fact of the matter is he was pardoned so that criminal charges couldn't be filed. There's a difference here, Guy.
That's it.
No, it's not.
All right. Let me just, I just want to move on. I want to move on. Let me discuss that at length. I want to move on to Trump's latest interview with Laura
This is what
Ingraham,
partisan bullshit
at Fox
does.
News, in which he said this about Kamala Harris.
She got rid of the laugh. I noticed I haven't seen that crazy laugh that she gets. She's crazy. That laugh, that's the laugh of a crazy person. But I noticed that she's not using that laugh anymore. Somebody convinced her, don't laugh, just don't laugh. Don't laugh under any circumstances because you...
I like laughter, but sometimes...
Not her laughter.
Now, Tatum, what do you make of that? I mean, Kamala Harris does have a weird laugh, there's no doubt about it. She's labeling Trump and J.D. Vance as a bunch of weirdos too. Everyone's calling each other crazy, weird, whatever. What they're not debating, it seems to me much, is policy. Why has it descended into kind of just pathetic name calling?
Yeah, I think, I don't like when politicians do this because it's pointless for the American people.
Thank you.
In a conversation where Donald Trump may want to interject that's fine. But like you said, it does nothing for the political conversation. No one, now I'll say this, I'm not going to say no one cares because I think it's a negative that Kamala Harris does have a weird laugh. I think it does turn people off to her. But I think it has zero value in a person going to the grocery store and trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills. So Donald Trump mentioning that is completely pointless. And I think it doesn't add any value. But I didn't listen to the full conversation, and I don't know if it was just a side note that he interjected. But I think the conversation needs to be focused more on policy and how we're going to turn around America and make it better for everybody that live here.
Exactly.
Okay, and check, on this separate rising thing about white dudes backing Kamala Harris, do you feel entirely comfortable with this? We've actually got the actual dude saying it. Let's take a listen to him.
I am not Mr. Lebowski. You're Mr. Lebowski. I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
I was brought to the party not so much as being white, and I certainly am, but because I'm a dude, So a friend sent me this email today with your hat on there, and I said, oh, I gotta have one of those. I qualify, man. I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris.
Probably touch kids.
Check this white dude thing. Do you feel comfortable with this?
No, I don't think it's good politics. And I don't think it's necessary at all. So let's stop playing identity politics. So
the first thing he said that isn't batshit crazy.
You should vote for her because she's a black woman. Everybody already knows she's a black woman, so don't worry about it.
Actually, no, everybody doesn't know that she's a black woman. And I don't want to get into identity politics, but since the left is just steamrolling into it, Kamala's family, if you'd see pictures of her family, there's like no black there. Like her entire mother's side is Indian, and then her father is supposedly like half black, half Indian. But when you look at him, you see like whole Indian or whole Asian or something. You see very little black. There's very little black inside of Kamala Harris's family tree. I mean, very, very little. But they want to use that because, once again, this is what the Democrats do, identity politics. And it's sickening. It's sickening. This is the total destruction of our country. This is how it happens. We're watching it in real time. This is how it happens.
You should let the Republicans play identity politics, and when they attack her for being a woman, which they can't help themselves, they do nonstop, then
I would love to hear one example of them attacking her for being a woman. Just one. Just one example of them attacking her for being a woman. Because as far as I've seen nothing. I've seen that she's incompetent. I've seen that she has an annoying laugh. I've seen that she slept her way to the top. But I have never seen anything that's like, oh, well, Kamala Harris can't do this because, well, I mean, she's a woman. We can't have a woman. That's not possible. I've not seen a single thing about that. I've not seen a single thing about her race or whatever the hell you want to call it. I've not seen anything like this. This is once again what the Democrats do. If you disagree with a woman or with a black person or anything, you're a racist and you're a bigot. And it's just that's it.
Democrats gain. And when they attack her for being black, then the Democrats gain. So stop all this stuff about racial stuff from the Democratic side. Let the Republicans do it to their detriment.
Okay,
Republicans
Destiny,
have never attacked
how
her.
worried? Okay, Officer Tatum, respond to that first, and I'll come to Destiny.
No, I think it's superfluous conversations being had. The Republicans have never attacked her for being a woman. They attacked her because she's incompetent. And that's the argument that has been going on and on and on. She's an incompetent person. It doesn't matter if she's a woman. It doesn't matter if she's black. Nobody cares. The fact of the matter is she's a failing vice president. She's terrible. She was terrible when she ran for president. She's terrible as the vice president. She adds no value to the political realm. She has no conversations about what she can do to better America. The woman is just literally selected as the VP because she was a black woman by the Democrats. And that's not going to bode well when it comes to the policies that people need to see to make a difference in America. Nobody I know is supporting Democrats now because Kamala Harris is in position of power.
And as far as like the sleeping her way to the top and all that, I've seen a lot of people comment on this, and I really don't want to comment on this, but the only reason why I would is because it shows that she's willing to do anything, not for her community, but for herself. She's willing to do anything, including sleep with prominent people, to be able to further her career. That should tell you all you need to know.
Okay, well, Destiny, Elon Musk.
He's doing it right there.
Hang on. I have a specific question. Elon Musk actually reposted on X a doctored video featuring Kamala Harris. Her voice had been doctored by AI. Let's take a look at the clip first of all.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist.
Now, a number of issues from that. One is, on one level, it's just quite funny. It's a joke. It's a parody. But secondly, that video has now been seen 128 million times on Elon Musk's X account. He said this is amazing with a laughing emoji. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, told Musk to take it down, to which Musk replied, I checked with renowned world authority, Professor Sug on These Nuts. And he said parody is legal in America, which is a typical Elon Musk response.
But you notice that whenever Kathy Griffith or whoever it was taking photo ops with a severed head of Donald Trump, that was totally fine. But the second that a Democrat is in the crosshairs like this, the second a Democrat is being ridiculed, oh, God forbid, we got to take it down, we got to silence it, because what it is it's racist and bigoted, because she's a black woman, kinda.
Destiny, you're not
so
laughing.
Stupid.
Did you not find any of this
just
funny?
to keep in mind, no, at this point, no, I'm sorry. Just to keep in mind, okay, when the Twitter files were released, there was exactly one person from one administration that literally sent in a request for a tweet to be removed from a comedian lady because she called Trump a pussy-ass bitch, and that was Donald Trump. That is the only time we've seen a personal request for a tweet to be removed because they were unhappy with the language that was being...
Yeah, a personal request, okay? So, yeah, that's pretty petty. But what he's saying here is totally misleading. The Twitter files showed all kinds of corruption. All kinds of corruption. From the government directly to big tech. Whole bunches. I'm not going to get into it, but go take a look at it for yourself. You'll be surprised.
Used. That came from Donald Trump. So to turn around and be like, oh, it's so funny when they make fun of our side. Meanwhile, you got a guy who's talking about imprisoning Americans for burning the flag. Crazy. I thought Republicans were all about freedom of speech and the First Amendment. I just think that's absolutely hilarious. Also, I think it's very funny that Republicans and conservatives in general, the people of Pizzagate and QAnon and all these crazy conspiracies, have in real time, this is like the conservative wet dream conspiracy. You have the richest man in the world from another country who bought the largest social media platform for media news distribution. He made it private. He took it private, doesn't do reporting on anything anymore, and is now openly reposting AI deepfake images of left-wing candidates. Like, holy shit. It's like everything they accused George Soros of doing, except it's actually out in the open and they're actually doing it. They're all laughing about it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's
funny,
a parody.
like in a depressing kind of way.
Let me ask you.
It's a parody like when Snoop Dogg does a music video and Donald Trump is in it and Republicans are losing their mind over, oh my God, it was a mock assassin.
Yeah, see, that's a bit different. When you're showing somebody killing a specific person, that's no longer a parody then. And he knows this. He knows this. For as stupid as he is, he's not dumb. All right, he knows this. Same thing with the Kathy Griffith holding up the head of Donald Trump and all that. Or Madonna saying, I really want to blow up the White House. Or Johnny Depp asking when the last time somebody assassinated a president was. Those are all talking about killing Donald Trump. Right here, they're just calling her stupid. They're not saying, oh, well, could you imagine? Could you imagine if somebody did a video where they took Kamala Harris out and fucking, in the video, they cut her head off. And then they said it was a parody because it's not real. It's obviously not real. Could you imagine the backlash? Or if somebody held the severed head of Joe Biden up in a photo shoot? Could you imagine the backlash? They wouldn't show a picture of Joe Biden hogtied on the back of somebody's truck on CNN and MSNBC because they said it was far too graphic. But they'll show somebody holding Donald Trump's severed head up. This is the difference. Can you see it in real time?
Yeah, parody, come on.
Well, yeah, they shot him in the head in the video. They shot him in the head in the video.
Let me ask, before we move on to all things Olympics, I want to talk to Cenk quickly. We've talked a lot, Cenk, in this whole campaign about what may present a proper threat to Donald Trump. And it seems to me that if you look at the first week of Kamala Harris, all right, it's been a coronation. Many people are concerned about the way it's happened, everything else. But the money is absolutely pouring in for her, $200 million plus in a week. She's exuding an air of a leader. I saw her with Netanyahu where she looked presidential. She made a sort of
fairly certain most of the money that's coming in for Kamala Harris was already there for Joe Biden that he had spent the entire campaign raising. And illegally, they just dumped it onto Kamala against election finance laws, which ironically is the exact same thing they were trying to put Trump in prison for in New York.
Presidential sounding address, even though there is an actual president, Biden, who's still there. She's got a lot of momentum here. There's only 4 months to go. Can she ride that wave of momentum? We're seeing the gap closing in many of the polls. You're seeing the black gap, for example, the black vote gap closing markedly, the Hispanic vote apparently closing as well. Is this just a honeymoon thing? Or are you looking at her and thinking, actually, you know what? She's got a chance here.
Yeah, it's both, Piers. First of all, to the Democrats out there who think that this is not going to be a roller coaster ride and we're just going to easily win, snap out of it. That is not a healthy way of thinking about it. That is very unlikely. The Republicans are really good at inventing issues, so they'll invent things to be outraged about. It'll hurt her. So there's a lot more cycles to come. Having said that, look, Piers, I was on your show many times saying we got to get rid of Biden, and if we do, we'll go from near 0% chance to at least a 50% chance of winning. And that is all the difference in the world, and that is where we are now. There was no question that it was the right thing to do, to push Biden out, to get a candidate that excites people. And the minute people saw someone who was not 98 years old, because both Biden and Trump are so old, so decrepit, the American people were like, oh my God, it turns out young, vibrant person who can speak is possible as our leader. So that's why she's gotten this huge bump up. That part is real and will last. Whether she can then take that, build off of it, and win is a different issue.
Notice that he's only talking about that she's young and vibrant and can actually talk, not that her policies are great and she's done this and this and this. Look at these lists of achievements of Kamala Harris. No, it's she's young and vibrant and she's a woman in black. when did that start to fucking matter for the president? Just...
Officer Tatum, are you worried at all about the fact it's no longer doddery old Joe, but a much more dynamic Kamala Harris who appears to be resonating?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm worried, but I do think that they do have some leverage there. I mean, Joe Biden was so terrible, and that was an easy win for us. I was excited that he was falling off the rails. But the difference is that Kamala Harris watched him fall off the rails and defended him this entire time. The Democrats defended him. They said he was okay. They said nothing was wrong with him. And the crazy fact is that Democrats think it's appropriate that this man that's supposed to have all these great accomplishments can't even run for president again. And they think that he can still run the country. This is what Democrats are representing. And Kamala Harris, she's going to have a lot of momentum because she is younger, because it is a relief from a half-dead person running for office, but it's going to die because there's no substance there. You can only pour so much money into a person. You can only be hype about a woman because she's a woman and she's black and she's a minority. Get all these crazy women on a call. You can only do that for so long. But then the American people are going to be looking at their bank accounts. They're going to be looking at the inflation. They're going to be looking at all these things that they already have problems with. They're going to be looking at immigration. And they're going to say, okay, now that all the fluff is over, what are you going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. And they're still, think about this, Piers, they are still in the administration that's running the country right now. It's not over. They still have to run the country. And they're failing miserably. And so I don't think it's going to last enough when the rubber meets the road.
I do worry about Kamala Harris getting into office. I think that people in this country are just dumb enough to vote her in. I really do. It has nothing to do with her being a woman. It has nothing to do with this color of her skin. I do not give a shit what is between your legs or what level of melanin you have in your skin. I really don't. What I care about is qualifications and accomplishments. And as far as I can tell, Kamala Harris has none on any category. Just zero. Nothing. Except for her sexual prowess with elderly black men, apparently. But as you can see from all that, it's just ridiculous. The left is absolutely ridiculous. The right's not too awful much better, but they are better. Check your stuff out, guys. Check what people tell you. Check what you hear on the news. Go out there and research. Do your own research. Figure out for yourself what is what. Because we're never going to get the truth from these people. We're just not. And that's sad, because if they actually gave a shit about the country or gave a shit about the people that was in the country, then we would be hearing facts and policies instead of she's a black woman or he's a racist or whatever. You know, we are not voting for prom queen or prom king here, people. We're voting for president. Stop voting on popularity and vote on policy. We might finish this one up. I might do a part 2 with this interview. I don't know. We're running really, really long here. So either way, see you guys on the next one.